we saw that incident yesterday. Obviously, grip was kind of a little bit of at a premium disadvantage because of the green racetrack, so to speak. The track changed considerably from the morning sessions into the early afternoon sessions.
Yeah, that's right. And I think we're going to see that throughout the rest of the weekend. Obviously, the heavy rain overnight and in the lead up to this weekend has really meant that as you say, the track is getting cleansed of the rubber that's down in the surface. Of course, once the Indy cars come out, that's going to change the dynamic as well with all of that Firestone rubber coming down. Certainly, we know that our Hankook tires interact a little bit differently with the Firestone rubber as opposed to the typical track surface. So a lot for these drivers to contend with over the weekend. The other big name to find the concrete around here was Wayne Williams, the 57 car. He leads the points in the Platinum class. That's the SR10 machines with those big 430 brake horsepower Ford EcoBoost engines in the back. The cars with the nostrils, I like to say, in the front end, either side of the nose, you'll see two big inlets for front-mounted radiators. But Wayne Williams having a messy moment just in the back section of the racetrack. Coming up out of Canada Corner, you've got this lovely section. It's almost like a mini Eau Rouge as the cars climb and turn slightly right, then left, and then navigate a couple more corners before they get into that final turn 14. Wayne just on the wrong trajectory, didn't concede defeat perhaps as much as he should have as he approached the exit curb, and the car just coming around him, and as the rear end unloaded, the suspension unloaded, all of a sudden the downforce no longer there, and a heavy hit back into the wall for him. Luckily for him, Jason Greenwood, a long-time competitor from up in this neck of the woods, Chicago-based, he was due to race this week, couldn't attend because of some work commitments, and Wayne Williams immediately on the blower to Jason Greenwood. Can I borrow the car? Greenwood and he put a deal together, and One Motorsports went immediately and picked up that car. They've been working overnight to have a look at it, and there it is on screen. Perfect timing.
And we've talked about this for the last couple of years. You and I have been working together for a long time, and the uniqueness about this series is you guys are all paddock together in the North Paddock. You actually have pavement now, which is nice. Your paddock areas looks absolutely great. But in this situation, there is a lot of camaraderie. This is a very competitive series. But there always seems to be, every race weekend that we see, someone has a little bit of misfortune, whether it's just a part or whether in this case it's a full race car. This paddock truly cares about its competitors, and that's a great aspect of what Radical Cup is trying to do with this series.
Well, that's what it's all about. I mean, at the end of the day, it's about race hard on the circuit. Obviously, we like to enjoy ourselves off it. We'll be going karting tomorrow morning. Big group, all the drivers, all of the friends, the families, the crews. Of course, a lot of mechanics in all of the paddocks are drivers or former drivers themselves. So that'll be a lot of fun. But yeah, you mentioned the camaraderie. I mean, that was a great example of that with Wayne Williams and Jason Greenwood. Also with Primal rebuilding the car for their young driver, Raiden Nicole. Team Stradale, the local dealer at Autobahn Country Club, just south of here, also stepping up. A couple of the mechanics coming down with the welder out and repairing these chassis. And for those that don't know, we do use a space frame chassis in these cars. Obviously, a lot of carbon fiber and composite bodywork over the top of these machines. But what's made Radical so successful over the last 20 plus years is the fact that the chassis itself, a space frame chassis, easy to repair in these trying circumstances when something comes a cropper, but very, very dynamic car, lovely car to drive, and a really rewarding car, whether you're a novice or whether you're an IndyCar driver, a Formula One driver. Lando Norris drove one of these cars relatively recently out at Autobahn Country Club. Sebastian Vettel has driven these cars over the years. Lewis Hamilton, Ryan Hunter-Reay, the list goes on. And everyone always impressed. The amount of downforce from these machines. And you can see the spray being kicked up at the exit of the kink. And that's really not the place to have a little river or a little bit more moisture on the circuit. But that's maximum downforce through there. These cars are flat out. Particularly we saw that yesterday. And if you're here at the circuit, go to the backside of the circuit. All these wonderful new paths that Road America has created for the fans. It's just awesome. I was out there yesterday having a look at these cars. The speed that these guys are carrying through the carousel, the 1500s in particular, they're flat out around there, flat through the kink. The SR10s just having a little bit of a lift as they approach the kink. Certainly yesterday, I wouldn't be surprised come qualifying if we have a dry track that people will be gritting their teeth and flat out through there. But awesome top speeds approaching 170 mile an hour into Canada Corner.
You know, one of the things we traditionally see with the Radical Cup, especially here at Road America, is because of that downforce, you're going to see a lot of, with the wet conditions here, a lot of spray, but you're going to see this racetrack dry really quickly this morning. You're starting to see dry patches, that light aspect. But these cars certainly make a lot of downforce, and their center corner speed is really where they make up a lot of their lap time here. Not only is it slippery in a straight line, but these cars are very good at cornering at speed.
Absolutely. High downforce car. You can see here just down into the braking zone of turn 5. A little bit of a wiggle on the initial brakes.
I think that's a little bit moisture, a little bit off the more traditional line there will certainly impact there.
The moisture on the inside. And I think the drivers are really going to have to watch that. And the guys certainly that are out there this morning are getting a few laps in and getting their eye in for what conditions may lay ahead. We always seem to get a little bit of weather here at Road America on a weekend like this one. Of course, it's going to be hot as well. And this is what makes this weekend so exciting, certainly for us, is that you're going to get a bit of everything. And I think just having the experience to understand where the racing line is, but what it's like offline. The grip levels, again, depending on how much debris, dust, dirt, and marbles are out there, where those rivers are that naturally form across the track, as we just saw from that shot.
Yeah, they'll naturally dry out, and certainly with the downforce cars that are here this weekend, it'll lift some of that moisture off the racetrack a lot more quickly than if it was just simply a street DOT tires like we may see traditionally with our vintage weekends here.
But the 8 guys that are out know where those rivers are. The rest of the paddock has no idea, and so this is where you wonder why you go out in wet conditions. It's to explore, it's to understand the grip levels, just to get a bit of a sense for what you can expect. You can see there on the exit, there's this just a small little river that's going across the track. That's what the exit of turn 2, is it?
That's
turn
14.
3?
That's actually
14.
Yep, from the bridge.
So, all of a sudden, if you know where that is, it's just going to change the way that you approach the race. If it does come bucketing down and you're contending with wet conditions, or perhaps, again, like a drying condition like this. But Wayne Williams obviously circulating in that 57 machine straight at the top of the charts, and shows that even though it was a big impact, he did actually have a little bit of a headache yesterday. Went back to medical just to make sure things were A-OK. Was given the all clear. His wife was very thrilled, actually, which is nice to see, because I thought she might be a bit panicked after that one yesterday. But thrilled that Wayne had found a car, was back out there, was feeling good this morning. And like so many of you race fans, he's staying on site. And I think that's the other thing that certainly for us is this weekend has got to be the best of the season. The atmosphere around here, the race fans at Road America, and the genuine passion that people have for these radical cars here. It's phenomenal, the emails that we get throughout the season, making sure that we're coming back to Road America. And we're really pleased to bring a big grid of cars with us. 30-odd cars out here this weekend. Raiden Nicole not making it out, so obviously they're still working on the 93 car. There's Ben Blander, one of our championship contenders. The 134, he's been quick this season. Chip Roma, I think maybe it was just ahead of him. And Chip, the number 5, knows Road America well, has been a runoffs winner here in P1 class with SCCA. Very used to high downforce machines. What he's not used to, or what he's certainly had to learn to contend with, is the absolute sheer fierceness of the racing in Radical Cup. The fact that there's multi-classes, very competitive. It is, and we've got a front splitter dragging, it looks like, and I wonder whether that is Raiden Nicole who's just got out. But it looks like something.
It could just simply be.
Yeah, that is Raiden Nicole. So that car has obviously been repaired. Perhaps got the ride height wrong, or whether something's just come loose. Obviously, a big hit. Both left-hand side corners impacted. Little bit of it was effectively superficial suspension damage on the left rear. The wishbones taking the impact. Everything else looked A-OK. But on the front left, they did have to do some chassis repairs that pick up points for particularly the upper suspension points were damaged on that car. The left side bodywork wasn't too bad, but no doubt a few things, perhaps a little bit worse for wear. Wouldn't be surprised if maybe that side pod has just collapsed a little bit under the pressure of the downforce being generated by the floor of this car. So in any event, Raiden Nicole doing the exploratory laps that he needs to do, obviously leading the championship, you cannot afford, with the way that the point structure is, not to start a race. You have to start. So it's critical that they get this car repaired, get it back sorted, and plenty of testing time again to make sure that happens.
Well, that's one of the things, obviously, taking a look at Turn 11. The new addition is the Grasscrete.
Yeah, fantastic.
With the concrete that's outside. That's going to cut down a little bit on the dust. So does the rain, but there's, again, a look at the Grasscrete. So those strips of green in there are grass physically growing in between different holes within the concrete. So there is a little bit of grip out there, but what that is meant to do is cut down a little bit on the dust. Now, we're not going to have a whole lot because of the wet weather this year.
Yeah.
But in this situation, I think it's going to save a lot of drivers from getting themselves into trouble. It does give them a little bit of an escape if they miss the apex entry to 11.
For what it's worth, I've got to commend Road America for this. This is a fantastic initiative, and I hope that track owners all around the world pay attention to this, because tarmac just means people use extra road. It's very, very simple. This is a fantastic, innovative solution to have the effect essentially of grass. It's going to be a low grip surface, the Grasscrete, but obviously it means that we've got a surface that still, as you say, is contained. There's a level surface out there, so you don't have the drop off like you would, whether it's grass or whether it's kitty litter. And of course, you can't drag on the kitty litter back onto the track, or tufts of grass and all the rest of it back onto the track. So really good stuff, and I'd like to see that used a bit more.
Well, very, very honestly, one of the things that we like to talk about here at Road America is this racetrack is the same as it was in 1955, within 7 millimeters of the original surface when they did the repave in the fall of 22. But in this scenario, I think the legend of the kink. We talk about racetracks globally where there are independently unique corners and certainly risk versus reward there in Turn 11. Having a little bit lower grip situation, there should be consequences for going off course, in that situation with the track limits, as they say. But in this situation, there shouldn't be a consequence of wadding up a race car, but you should lose a little bit of speed in that situation from not being precision. We want the fastest drivers, the fastest cars to lead these fields, but we certainly don't want to wad up race cars.
No, look, you don't. But at the same time, that risk versus reward, that is what motorsport's all about, as we see a bit of risk and reward almost 3 wide there in practice. So the guys are trying to find some space out there, but certainly not leaving much on the table, as we see, again, 2 wide around the kink. Ironically, a bit more grip today in these wet conditions on the outside line around the kink. just like you'd typically see in the wet. Karting lines typically work because you're not on the rubbered-in surface, and so that water is, sits on top of the rubber. It doesn't sit down in the surface of the tarmac itself, and so, ironically, using the line that put Raiden Nicole in the wall yesterday is probably slightly more beneficial today. But going back to that risk versus reward, that's what makes racing racing. As a driver, you're always gritting your teeth, trying to assess what grip levels you have, the confidence of yourself and the equipment. And of course, it's one thing to know from the data that the car will do 40 mile an hour around the kink flat out. It's another thing to grit your teeth and actually get the job done. And it's so easy to come back in feeling like, yes, I absolutely nailed that. I was flat out on the accelerator. And then, of course, look at the data trace and you find a little lift. And for those that, if you ever hear a racing driver say that they've got no fear, that is nonsense. Everyone has got fear. The big thing, though, is to overcome that fear. And that's what's so lovely about downforce cars. You have this innate ability and sense of how much grip a typical road car has. You can feel the mechanical grip underneath you. The downforce is a layer on top. And so all of a sudden, your brain is telling you through turn 1, through turn 3, that, in normal circumstances, I should only be doing 60 mile an hour through this corner. The downforce allows you to go much faster, and that's what makes these cars so much fun to drive. Really rewarding stuff when you get up on the wheel and push these cars to the limits. And I think a circuit like Road America has retained all of the challenges, and the kink is one of them. Canada Corner is another. There's a lot of places that are unforgiving around this racetrack. Doesn't mean to say that there's plenty of runoff too. Safety around here is spectacular, but at the end of the day, that's what it's all about: is pushing the limits and seeing if you can overcome that fear and the sanity of your brain telling you that maybe a little bit more right foot is not appropriate.
Sometimes, again, the patience is the better part of valor, as they say. But looking at this practice session, not a surprise to see the 37 car, John Field, up at the pointy end of the timing charts during this practice session. John's got a lot of laps around here.
Yeah, and for those that don't know, John Field, it has been a number of years now, but a former America Le Mans Series champion. He was a privateer running against the likes of the Audi teams. He and his son, Clint Field, we've seen Clint back out in Radical Cup as well over the last couple of years. But John Field won a championship and again took on the might of factory teams in LMP2 and some of the more obscure LMP classifications like 900, I think, and a few other things back in those funny classes. But at the end of the day, John Field, spectacular racer, had a hiatus for a number of years, went down to Primal in Atlanta, did one of the SR1 radical racing schools down there with his son, fell back in love immediately with the sport and was immediately in Radical Cup. And having known and raced against John and Clint Field, it's really lovely to see those guys in our paddock. A lot of father and sons, a lot of duos, if you like. A couple of brothers out there as well. So Arul Venkatesh, Valen Venkatesh. Arul is running the championship for a couple of years. They're both out of California, running for Radical Northwest and Cameron Racing. And Valen Venkatesh has really stepped up. Younger brother, following in the old brother's footsteps, and has done an impressive job in his rookie season. We don't see another one of the Radical Northwest cars out here this weekend. Typically, they're running 3 cars. It's another younger brother that's following in the older brother's footsteps, and unfortunately not out here this weekend. We had Mike D'Ambrose Jr. out on circuit yesterday practicing alongside his father. He won't be participating in the racing. So yeah, a few people out there that fathers and sons, again, the camaraderie, a good one.
Well, we've talked about this round. The car goes around over in turn five. That looks like that may have been a nickel.
Yeah.
Potentially in turn five. But we've talked about Road America rounds. What we're looking forward to this weekend. Couple of rounds ago, of course, with this series traveling multiple different racetracks throughout the summer. And putting together a really nice package for customers that purchase these cars. Of course, support from factories critical is part of that as well from the dealerships here in the United States. But these cars are similar in classification to those running globally, which is what makes this series really unique. You can have someone from overseas step in and race competitively, in different regions if you're so inclined. But 31 cars here registered this weekend. I know the previous round we had 28, but it's nice seeing a balance of this series continually to build fields and grow. We were talking about our gold class competitors and certainly our platinum competitors, but within all three classes, platinum, Pro 1500, and Pro 1340, regardless of the classification of the car, there's a lot of rookies this season here with Radical Cup North America.
Yeah, so you can see the R's next to the names. That's indicating the rookies. The G on the Pro 1500 names, that's indicating gold class. That's a subclass for over 30-year-olds in the Pro 1500 class. Of course, within Pro 1500, a lot of young guns come in. You had a good tee up before in terms of racing globally. We have a couple of our British competitors out here this weekend. In fact, half the paddock is now speaking with a Pommy accent. It's quite amazing how many guys have come out. But Jack Yang is running for a British team, Valor Racing, who's based in the UK but operates out here, and indeed operates also in our United Arab Emirates competition as well. And then Andy Lowe, a UK competitor who has stepped up with JBR Racing and has come out here to enjoy himself in the Radical Cup North America Series, and he also competes in the Radical Cup United Kingdom Series. So, yeah, it is quite an international flavour. Multiple nationalities, of course, a few Canadians as well. And a good mix of competitors, as you say, young guns stepping up through the classes and using Radical as a springboard to the Road to Indy or former Road to Indy championships, as well as Indy Next. Jordan Missig started life in Radicals, went off to do some USF programs, came back to Radical last year, won the championship with Graham Rahall's team, and has stepped up to Indy Next this year. And I must say, given his limited testing program in Indy Next, I'm pretty impressed with his performance. It's a pretty competitive field this year. And Jordan, certainly doing a good job after winning the championship in the Pro 1500 series last year against Nick D'Orlando. And that was a fierce fight.
And we've seen over the years, we've seen races that you've got a leader out by 2 or 3 seconds, 3 or 4 seconds, and then you've got second through eighth all separated by a second and a half, 2 seconds. So, you have obviously drivers that have a lot of experience at this racetrack. Of course, Field and Williams separated by about 2 seconds here in this practice session with just 5 minutes remaining in the practice session. But I'll tell you, this class, between the three classes of racing, we see a lot of elbows out driving, but the gentlemanly aspect of this series, I think, is something that is really overlooked. You don't see a lot of cars with a lot of contact because I think everybody kind of respects the four corners of the race car. Accidents happen, racing incidents happen, of course, but you do see the aggressive filling of mirrors occasionally. But that's what this is really about with the high grip. High commitment, corners here at Road America. These cars, they just lend themselves very well to the performance of what these cars are designed to develop into.
Yeah, look, it's a really lovely car to drive, very well balanced, as I mentioned, very confidence inspiring for people getting into the sport, very rewarding for those with plenty of years of experience. And, I got to come up with a different term for gentleman driver because it's not fair to those guys. a lot of these customers have been driving Radicals for years and years and years. They are very, very storied racing drivers in their own right. Take someone like Jim Booth, a guy that's raced Ferrari Challenge. He's raced all over the world. He's won championships in Europe with Radical. He's run in the UK series. He's run here in the US and Atlantics, all sorts of things. Jim has got more experience than most people when it comes to racing and racetracks. He's a guy that's very passionate about his sport. He just came to it later in life. And that's what this series, these cars, allow people to do. Look, age is a factor in motorsport, but it doesn't have to be the defining factor. And I think that's what's lovely about this series is you've got young kids that are quite surprised at the competitiveness of the older drivers, I'll use that term, the slightly more seasoned drivers. Look at Jack Yang. He's fastest in Pro 1500 at the moment. He's a gold class driver, so he's over 30 years of age. He's not one of the whippersnappers, if you will. But Raiden Nicol can't match him at the moment. Now, Nicol's obviously coming back from having that issue yesterday, but Jack Yang won a race here last year for Group A Racing. He also has the lap record around Road America at the moment. So there's no problem if you're a little bit older, a little bit longer in the tooth when it comes to Radical Cup racing. The stars of Platinum Class are all guys that have found success outside of racing and are now applying that same tenacity to motorsport. And obviously Pro 1500 is where we find our young guns generally, but Pro 1340 also a hotbed of young talent. And look out for Brady Clapham from Canada this year. He's not out there at the moment. The 77 car will be joining us later. But for Ryspec Racing, with YD Auto Group, Brady Clapham has been a superstar, Mr. Consistency in Pro 1340 this year, and is really going to be one to watch this weekend. But a lot of competition from some of the other guys that have come out for this one. Mike Dambrose will be quick around here, I know that for sure. Aaron Ziegler, impressive. And then at the moment, of course, Dermot Ennis. He sits about third in the points in Pro 1340, but he's fastest. He's the only Pro 1340 to circulate. So we've had 13 cars come out here in this session. The clock is winding down to the checker flag. Wayne Williams as fastest. And in fact, just as I say that, John Field has just eclipsed him, a 2:08.3 for John Field for One Motorsports. So One Motorsports, 1, 2, and 3 in the Platinum class. Chip Romer has found himself third quickest in that class. Jack Yang has found himself fastest in Pro 1500 from Raiden Nicol, who certainly found some frustration last night with a trip to the scenery and indeed finding the wall here at Road America. Arul Venkatesh, the fastest of the Venkatesh brothers. The older brother, this time quicker than Valen. And Louis Schreiber just popping in a time there right at the end. Andy Lowe, Mike Anzaldi. They'll be really interesting to watch this weekend in the gold class. Can they eclipse the speed that Jack Yang has around here? Vaughn Glace, another one to look out for, number 18. He was 11th fastest in this session. And there he is coming through screen, the proper performance driver. He won on debut in Pro 1340 at Barber Motorsports Park. He stepped up to the competition in Pro 1500 with a little bit of work to do. But I think at the end of the day, everyone just using this session to find their feet. I suspect we're going to see absolute fireworks later today. Of course, qualifying to come after another practice session this morning, and then our first race of 3 for the weekend. Radical Cup racing all 3 afternoons. So stick around too after the IndyCar race, because Radical Cup will have 30 cars on the grid. No point getting stuck in traffic. Just watch Radical Cup and crack open another cold one.
And honestly, that Sunday afternoon race is typically a banger, as the kids say these days. But Raiden Nicol, 5th quick here in the session with a repaired car. But again, we talk about Williams with that that Greenwood car was top of the board until that seasoned little veteran, John Field.
Well, and then Williams just went quicker again, and then John Fields just eclipsed him again. So they're down into the 207. So you can see that track is drying out.
But you can see the consistency with, I think, the comfortability in the race cars. Wayne Williams, that's a brand new car to him after yesterday. So in that circumstance, that just shows the quality of the cars throughout the field.
And not only that, it's the previous iteration of the SR10. So the latest iteration, the XXR. Number of competitors have that. Wayne Williams was driving one of those cars. John Field yesterday said the downforce on the front of that car following it, he's in an older car, he could see the difference, certainly around the carousel, the amount of pace that could be carried through the kink as well. And so interesting that Wayne Williams has adapted to that slightly older car so quickly. But there we are. It's the first practice session, the first official session for the Radical Cup North America Series this weekend. Done and dusted. Certainly no dust out there, shall we say, given the wet conditions. But we'll be back shortly with another practice session this morning. Then, as I mentioned, qualifying later today, and then race 1 for the Radical Cup North America Series. So lots of action to come from this championship. We'll see 30 cars back out there, no doubt, for the next one. And looking forward to putting on a big show this weekend for all you race fans out there.
We'll see you at 10:35. Tom, thanks for coming. Rob Howden and the USF Pro Championship practice rounds are next here from America's National Park of Speed.